There's an executive instrument, and that executive instrument, logically, EI 63, we know it's coming from the president, but essentially, it then makes available to government and its assigns or agencies for telecommunication companies to give those assigns or agencies any sort of information they need, including the ones relating to public health. And this one came into force just recently, and it's all because of related issues of coronavirus. There have been issues, or there are issues that have been raised about whether this provisions of the executive instrument, and particularly the sections that are asking for public information to be made available when they have to be made available to these state agencies and assigns, could be an affront to people's privacy, and whether it breaches the Communications Act we have, the Data Protection Act, and related issues as we have them in our country. Well, we decided to have a conversation on this subject. Also pick the thoughts of a legal practitioner, and he's a regular on the show, Kpebu, and then ask him some critical questions as far as we're concerned on the subject. Good morning to you, Mr. Kpebu.
Yes, morning, Roland.
Yeah,
morning.
Great. Now, this EI 63, how different is it from, I remember, a bill that, of course, it didn't see the light of day, what we refer to as the spy bill, so to speak, under the Mahama administration, the Postal Packets and Telecommunications Messages Bill in the first place, before we transition and get to have details of what the EI stipulates and what that could mean ultimately.
Yeah. So you got it right. They are kindred. They are extremely related because in both there is an attempt to give powers to authorities to be able to interfere with our private telecommunications messages, calls, data, and all those. So to that extent, they are extremely related. I know when the spy bill was shut down with the help of Samson Ayeni and the CSOs, it looked like the government at the time wasn't happy. And it's surprising that a few years on, with
Mr. Kpebu, I think we have to re-establish the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, please continue. You went a bit faint, that's why.
Yes, so I stated that the current EI-63 is quite much like the spy bill which didn't see the light of day. They are quite alike because excuse me, the EI-63 is asking the telecommunication service providers and operators to give government information on our telephone numbers, our calls, and text messages in the same way as the spy bill sought to do. So to that extent, they are very related.
Now, too, particularly when this one is saying including a public health emergency, after a period of a public health emergency, and since this one is already into force, what would it mean and how can it be abused in any way?
You know, in law there's this popular maxim that not even the devil can tell the intent of a man. Yes, but not even the devil can tell the intent of a man. On the face of it, yes, on one hand, we have to be trusting that government will use it only for the public health emergency. But history too has taught us that often government is interested in the activities beyond what usually it will state on paper. That is how come people are apprehensive that this EI-63 could be used for far more intrusive measures, not related to this public health emergency. You see, so to that extent, at this stage, we would all be apprehensive But it may also well turn out that government will not venture including into our private messages, but will only use the system to track. So you see, Roland, and they've had to use this kind of system to track people's movement. You see, when they say don't move, stay at home, and then some people want to, flout the law, and then you find them moving very far afield from their home. When this system is deployed, it can be used to identify all such persons and inquiries made from them, why maybe they went 50 kilometers from their house, 100 kilometers from their home, and so on and so forth. You say, yes. So some people are using it in other countries, but of course, this is a very strong country. We've never been as docile as we portray ourselves. People are very active and are always watchful. So it's good. But you are raising the alarm so that it will caution government just to stay within the public health emergency of the system it wants to deploy.
But how do these provisions within this instrument flout the sections of the Data Protection Act? And if you go to Section 35 of the Act, it says right of access to personal data. And it says a data controller shall inform an individual who is the data subject of the processing of the individual's personal data by the data controller or another person on behalf of the data controller. And it continues subsequently. Yeah.
Okay, good. So, yes, we're reading from the Data Protection Act. That's very all right. And even higher than the Data Protection Act, we have Article 18 of the Constitution, which says, okay, so since you've read, let me also read for mine so that we read it so that it helps emphasize the point. So 18.2 is the mother of all the prohibitions because, the Constitution is the highest law of our land. And so let me read 18.2. It says, no person shall be subjected to interference with the privacy of his home, property, correspondence, or communication. Correspondence or communication, except in accordance with law, and as may be necessary in a free and democratic society for public safety or the economic well-being of the country, for the protection of health or morals, for the prevention of disorder or crime, or for the protection of the rights or freedoms of others. So, Renan, you see, speaking as a matter of pure law, as I made a point earlier, for the interference, sometimes when there is a public health emergency like this, the Constitution itself envisages that there may be an interference. But the problem is that at what point, how sure are we that government doesn't exceed the stated public purpose of COVID-19 to go into other spheres? Let's say maybe they want to trail Roland on your personal matter, or they want to trace Mr. X, or they even want to trace a certain opposition person they don't like. So that is where the problem is. So on the face of the law, the Constitution itself says that in certain exceptions, we can interfere. So as a pure matter of law, COVID-19 can qualify. But the problem is who will watch to ensure that government doesn't exceed. So maybe the best we can do is that at this stage, if perhaps we could modify the CI to put in a watchman, so get somebody to do a watchdog role, because we don't want government to exceed. So let's look within our society. We will gather the best of our people who have the best of integrity, and then set up a committee so that they would also be on board, so that if these are people as a society we trust and watch government not to exceed, then we can go on. Because Roland, if we're just to say that, strike down E63, we don't care about COVID-19, that one will not wash. It will not wash. So the best is that let's modify EI63 to bring on civil society organizations, and not just civil society, individuals. We all know as a country, people can step forward, propose people who are known to have very high level of integrity. They can't be compromised easily. Even if it was their mother or their dad who told a lie, they were exposed to such person. Those kind of people that we can vouch for, we will get them. And then they are made part of the committee, okay, to superintend how this system is working. I think that's the best. Let's get a watchdog in the system.
And we're having hindsight based on our history with how emergency powers of the executive or the head of the executive have been abused in the past. And that discretionary power in the future could lead to decisions being made for which laws or regulations would be evoked. And ultimately, people's privacy and access to data could be breached. Is there something that as legal practitioners, as media, as society, we need to avert our mind to?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Because as we will still come back to the same point. Not even the devil can tell the intent of a man. Yes. So as for the likelihood, the potential risk that the laws will be used to breach our privacy and all that, it's very high, based on our history, that we are always asked to misuse power. That is it, and especially in the context of an African society. You say, yes, so it's good. Let's make all the noise we can about it, all the agitation, so that we modify it. Because as I stated, look, from where I sit, because it's a public health emergency, if we are talking about a total taking down of PI 63, that's quite difficult. Let's rather come for a modification. I don't know, Roland, have you been receiving notices from COVID-19, like it comes as a text message?
I've been thinking it's been coming from my service provider. Is it? Okay. Do you have information that it's coming from the executive or the NCA or any other supervisory body?
No, so that's why I'm asking. Actually, at the point, I was also wondering whether it was coming from the executive. That's why I'm asking. So even if it's from the service provider and not the executive, so the point about it is that, so you see that every day they send a tip. So that's a useful tip. You see, that's a useful tip. So even if it turns out that it's from the government, then you see that at least that's one positive use of it. There could be more. You see why, if we were to say that totally strike out, that one, it would be difficult. That's why we should think through about how to curtail the excesses, make sure that government doesn't go beyond the public health emergency.
Okay. If any individual wants to stop government in its tracks in relation to the execution of this, by what means can they do that?
Well, so some lawyers have shown the way. For instance, Party has sued government. He's a lawyer himself, right? But acting through Justice Kempsai. So they have sued government that the EI considers the part that seeks to interfere with their Francis Carter's private compensation constitutes a breach of his constitutional rights. So they've sued the government. The matter is in court. I'm sure in due course, government would be served. But if they've not already been served, and then the court will look into it. But you see how court cases sometimes take a bit of time. So in the interim, is that you guys are, hosting this kind of program. Do more of it. Let's call experts. Let's do more comparative to students from around the world, especially on the measures to make sure that government doesn't go beyond the COVID-19 to look into our private messages. Let's begin to do that in the interim. Because what I saw, from the lessons that I saw is of the court case, it's not being heard even next week. No, it will take a bit of time. So at least more than a month from now, at least so far by what is described, it's possible for the council to initiate processes to ask for an emergency hearing. But at least for now, it doesn't look like the case will be heard before 1 month. So in the interim, what's going to happen? So you guys, it's your constitutional duty to hold government accountable. And of course, as citizens, we are helping you as the media. So let's do the work now as much as we can.
If we want to transcend beyond our borders and we have to look at some of the very landmark issues that have happened, we've had, for example, Julian Assange with his related issues on WikiLeaks, as well as other individuals who have taken cases against the government of the United States, for example, but for which the government has always held sway and come up tops when it comes to some of those breaches, ultimately. Look, when we're talking about government, they are the most powerful. So to what end can some of these concerns being raised come to the fore and ultimately have some of these advocacy perhaps become the principal things by which they could be heard?
Okay, yes, very good example, Roland. Yes. On paper, government is the most powerful, but in practice, the people are actually the most powerful. And not just even on paper, even our own constitution, no, it's the people who are most powerful, not government. Because it says power resides in the people. And so for our own good, then we give government a share of it so that government will govern us. So, cut straight to the chase. Governments are usually very wary when they are dealing with public opinion. So this Assange story is mentioned. Roland, don't you see that the fact that it's been taking so long to date has not been tried? That itself tells you that the people are very powerful, because it was very clear that the information it leaked, hoping that true to speak, it laid very clear all the suspicions we've had over the decades, the way government work. So you see that public opinion, especially led by the media, help to tell government that, look, we are not interested in the prosecution. Why do you think the Ecuadorian government was able to allow him to stay in the embassy for that long? It's because they knew that public opinion back then. Because, let me tell you, under international law, there have been occasions where if a fugitive runs, the host state is able to go into the embassy and take out the person. You see, when they say an embassy is an extension of the land of the sending state. So let's say Ecuador has an embassy in the UK. So they say, oh, the embassy is part of Ecuador's territory. That's just a fiction. There are various theories in international law, but the dominant one is that the host government doesn't go into the embassy quickly as a matter of courtesy, because if you like to expel in the embassy, what will happen to your embassy in the sending state? You say, so it's not as if truly the Ecuadorian embassy in England is an extension of the state of Ecuador. No, it's because of committee and courtesy and all that. So the point I'm making is that had it not been for public opinion that the media helped to build that, nothing would have stopped the UK government from getting to the embassy and chatting out Assange. So just like you're doing this program now, on Saturday, something that he take where he complained, you're going on, yes, and other stations are also complaining. That pressure not to trespass into our private messages. And usually that works the least. It does. Because, trust me, if government were to interfere, the way this country works, somebody will leak it out. And as soon as it's leaked out, we will punish governments severely, okay? They will pay for it. So I'm sure that the president, being a lawyer, of course, they have people who monitor the radio stations, and they know what the public is discussing. So they will take a cue from it and be sure not to trespass into our private messages, but that they will stay within the COVID-19 public health issue.
No, okay. So ultimately, perhaps could we have had the wording of the executive instrument go beyond including only a public health emergency to other related instances?
Well, that one, because the power belongs to the president, it's a matter of power. Yes, he could have. But you remember when they were drafting the Imposition of Restrictions Act, the Act 1012, right? Remember there was a public furor about its very general nature. You see, others others advocated for a
the British one. Yes.
No, I'm even the Ghanaian one. You see,
yes,
when
definitely.
they were passing it in Parliament, some people were of the opinion that government should have been specific. The bill should have been specific to only COVID-19. But the way it was done generally so that it can be used in the future, people were not happy. So I'm making the point that, you said can the EI have been done more generally. And I'm saying yes, as a matter of law, the power belongs to the president to make it. It could have been more general. But because people had complained when we're passing the main act, I think the fact that this one is more specific it would at least appease the people who were very scared about the general nature of the law. I don't know if you get the point.
Yes, I do get the point. Because there were instances within that debate that the reference was made to how perhaps we could have kept it within the boundaries of the way the British did theirs. Within a certain period of a health emergency, and after that, then it becomes almost moot, so to speak. But just by way of conclusion, if you, by your own observation, look at the powers that the head of the executive has, do we need more emergency powers for the president, so to speak?
Well, at this stage, I won't ask for more because we've not even gone into Article 31 yet. You say, so 31 onwards deals with the emergency powers of the president. But he hasn't invoked that yet. You say, and so it would be far-fetched at this stage to ask for more for him. Usually he has all the information that you and I are not privy to. So on the analysis of the information he has, so far, I think so. He doesn't need to invoke a state of emergency. If that is so, then we will not even think about giving him more. Okay. So maybe let's see if there is time. Can I just read a bit of Article 31, the emergency powers?
Yes, you can.
Yes. Yes. So it says 31 plus 1. The president may, acting in accordance with the advice of the Council of State, by proclamation published in the Gazette, declare that a state of emergency exists in Ghana or in any part of Ghana for the purpose of the provisions of this Constitution, and so on and so forth. And of course, so when he declares it, he shall put it before Parliament, that our people's representatives can look through and see if really his declaration of the state of emergency is lawful. I mean, is it reasonable based on the facts, based on everything? So the point I'm making is that if he hasn't gone in there, we cannot run ahead of him. Let's stay here, and as and when information is brought that there is a need for a public emergency, sure we can contribute.
Well, thank you very much for your contribution this morning. And Mr. Martin Kpebu is a legal practitioner helping us with that discussion there. We'll keep tabs on it, but we have to move on to other relative discussions as well. Mamavi, you're ready with an update?
Yes, but I love that conversation, which essentially for most of us, when Samson Ladi Ayenini on Saturday did his take on corona chaos, reveals autocrats in democracies, just brought back the whole spy idea. Remember during former President Mahama's administration when that came up. And also a reminder, there were a lot of CSOs, the Ghana Bar Association as well, all commenting on
Occupy
that.
Ghana.
Exactly. CDD as well. And it just tells you it's either we're so into the whole corona, we're social distancing and we are
we're turning a
all
blind
under
eye.
quarantine, or the people who are supposed to speak and explain matters to ordinary citizens are simply not doing it. For what reason? We don't know. We just have to wait for that court action and see where it goes. So really important conversation.